Hello everyone and welcome to Twin Stitches Designs tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how I knit my socks. I absolutely love knitting my socks on magic loop, which is what I'm going to be showing you how to do today. Magic loop is when you use a minimum of a 32-inch cord and you knit your socks on these circular needles. It is a lot of fun and I hope that you absolutely enjoy this tutorial. In the tutorial, we will go through how to cast on. I will show you how to do it with a long tail cast on with a contrast color. We're going to be joining in our main color. I will show you how to do a full heel flap and gusset, and we're going to finish off with a fun contrast toe. In this tutorial, I do have a PDF pattern that you can purchase. It goes through all the numbers, the stitch counts, and everything in detail. So I will link that down below if you are interested. It's also in my Ravelry shop. You don't need the pattern. If you've already knit socks, you can just watch the tutorial video to give yourself a nice refresher, but it is there if you would like for it to kind of accompany the video. If you have any questions, please send me an email. I always link it down below, and I would love to answer any questions you may have on sock knitting. I will mention everything in the next little clip on everything that you need for this sock. So grab your yarn, grab your needles, and let's get started on knitting a fun pair of socks. Let's get started with what you need. To knit this pair of socks, I have a 100-gram skein of fingering weight yarn. You can either choose to have a contrast color, or you can knit everything in your 100-gram skein of yarn. But for my contrast color, I decided to go with this Knit Pick Stroll in Cobblestone Heather. I thought it paired really nicely with my main color, which is Haute Knit Yarns and her McQueen Silk Sock base in Foggy Autumn Mornings. So you're going to need at least a 100-gram skein of fingering weight yarn. I have over here a little stitch marker, as well as my needles. These are Chiagu 2.25 millimeter needles in a 32-inch cable. So let's get started. We are going to cast on with a long tail cast on with our contrast color. The first thing we're going to do is our long tail cast on. You're going to start with a simple slip knot. So you just twist the yarn and pull the working yarn through. You're going to put this on your needle, and you're going to pull both yarns through so that you want it nice and snug so it doesn't go anywhere on your needle. You're going to hold this needle in your right hand and you're going to hold the tail in your left hand. You're then going to take your thumb and you're going to push it through. So you're creating kind of a loop around your thumb. You're going to take the needle, you're going to put it through the loop. You're then going to take these two fingers and pinch the top of that needle. You're going to take your working yarn and put it around counterclockwise. Then you're going to take your needle again. You're going to pull the needle through. Now you see I still have a loop. You're then going to let go of the loop and pull through. We're going to do that again. You're going to take your thumb. You're going to go around. Take your needle. Push it through. Take your working yarn. Pinch your fingers counterclockwise. You're then going to pull this through the loop and let go. Thumb and around. Pull up, through, pinch, around, and through. So you're going to keep doing this until you have the number of stitches you need to cast on. For my husband's pair, I'm going to be doing 64 stitches. You just finished casting on the number of stitches required for your size. For this one, I cast on 64 stitches. So what we're going to do is we are going to divide these stitches into two. So for this size, it would be 32 stitches, and then you just find your middle. So I kind of split it here. Count your stitches, and then what you're going to do is when you find the middle of these stitches, you're going to pull the cord through. So I just like to take it, pinch it, and then pull just the cord through. You're going to bring both needles right here. I like to move all of my stitches up my needles. Now this is a very, very, very important part. If your stitches are twisted when you cast on, when you join in the round, there is no way you can undo this. You're gonna have to rip back completely and start over because this is just not something that's fixable. So what you wanna make sure is, when you look at my needles right now, you see that I adjusted these, that all of the stitches are in the inside. You see that nothing is twisted. Now what I mean twisted, sometimes you could see that right here, it goes and it twists all over. So we want to make sure that they're all facing the exact same way. So usually what I like to do is put them all in this little edge, all on the inside. So now when you have this is where your little stitch marker is also going to be coming in handy. Very carefully, you're going to take your right hand needle where the working yarn is from, and you're going to pull it through, holding these stitches together. Okay, now you want to make sure that you are using your working yarn rather than your little tail. So you're going to go in to knit on that first stitch, making sure that we're not using that little yarn, that we're using our working yarn. So you're going to go in to knit, pushing those. Now for this pattern, I'm going to be doing a knit 2, purl 2. So I'm going in knit 2, and then I'm going to be purling 2. This is also where I like to put my little stitch marker. So I'm going to try and pick that up and put that on. As you come to your stitch marker, all you do is you slip it. So now we're going to do the knit 2, purl 2 all the way around. Now this could be any type of ribbing that you would like. You could do a purl 1, knit 1, you could do a 3x1, you could do whatever you like. I really love a knit 2, purl 2. So I'm just going to do this all the way around. As you come to your last 2 stitches, you're going to purl 2. And what you're going to do here is you're going to now knit the stitches on the second needle. So you turn, push the needle in, the cord. Might be a little tight because this is your cast on edge. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to pull that needle out, and we're going to come and continue our ribbing on the knit 2, purl 2. Okay, so you just finished your first round all over. You're going to notice that there's a big gap here, and that is completely normal. As we're going to knit the second row, we can easily close that gap. So what you're going to do is you're going to do the exact same thing. Is you're going to pull out this needle, and once you go into knit, you really want to make sure that you tug on the first 2 to 3 stitches. So you're going to take your working yarn, you're going to put it around to knit those stitches, and see how I'm tugging? And that really closed up that little gap. So you're just going to keep on going, knit 2, purl 2 for however many rounds your pattern tells you, and I'll meet you back here once we've finished the rib and we are ready to attach our main color of yarn. Now that you've finished the ribbing, we are going to move on to the leg of the sock, and for this one I'm going to be using my main color, and I'm going to be cutting the contrast color as I did here. You want to leave a long tail. I usually leave about 4 to 5 inches so that we can sew that in later. So all you're going to do is you're going to cut the working yarn of your contrast color. You're going to go in as if to knit. You're going to take a strand of your main color. And then you're just going to wrap it around your needle. You want to make sure as well that you leave, again, a tail so that you can weave this in later. So you're going to hold this tight and you're going to knit. For your next stitch, when you're going to go in, you're going to drop the little tail, and then, oh, it's just wrapping itself around. Then you're just going to keep on knitting with that working yarn. You're going to continue knitting here. You're going to notice that when you get to this last stitch, it is going to be loose because your working yarn from your contrast color was cut off. So what I like to do is I like to tug that strand of yarn inside, as well as the little waist, I keep calling it waist yarn, but this little tail of your main color. So you want to tug both of those in. When you're going to come around here, you're going to notice that it is going to be loose. All I do is I tug these in the inside, and I find that that closes up nicely. Don't worry if you end up with a small little hole, because you can use these strands of yarn after to weave in that end. So if that does happen, don't worry at all. We can definitely fix that on later when we come to that. So you're just going to continue knitting around and around for however long you would like your leg. I get asked this question a lot, is how many inches do I like my leg length? And for myself, I like a minimum of 5.5 inches from the cuff and from the cast on edge. And for my husband, he likes anywhere between 6 to 8 inches. For me, it's between 5.5 to 7 inches long. So that's how I like it. You will go with whatever on your pattern or your desired length, and we will meet back here to complete the heel flap and gusset. We just finished knitting the leg of your sock. For this sample, I knit to 6.5 inches from the cast on edge. I like knitting for my husband anywhere between 6 to 8 inches in the leg. And this is where you're going to be doing your heel flap and gusset. You're going to follow the instructions row by row in your pattern, but I'm going to show you how to work them here. It is very simple once you break it down into each round. So what you're going to be doing is you're either going to be knitting them on row 1 or on your row 2, depending on what your pattern states. In this one, we're going to be knitting the heel flap and gusset on the row 1. So your instructions say for a right side row, you're going to slip 1 purlwise, so you're going to put it in there, and then you're going to knit 1. So we're going to knit it, you're gonna slip one, again, purlwise, and knit one. You're gonna continue that the whole way. So slip and knit, slip and knit, slip one, knit one, slip and knit, slip and knit. Now what you're going to do here is, instead of working on your needle 2 in the back, you're going to turn your work. Okay, you're not going to move your needles, you're going to turn the work to rework the needle 1. So you're going to keep your needle where it is, and you're going to come and you're going to purl all of those stitches. And these are the 2-row repeats. I prefer to do this type of heel. I absolutely love a heel flap and gusset. So you're gonna purl every single stitch all the way back. Always slipping the marker as you come to it. And there. So once you're done that purl, you're going to do the same thing as you're going to turn your work, and we're going to do the same, slip one, knit one across. These are the 2 rows that you're going to be doing all the way for the heel flap. And in the pattern, we are going to be doing this 15 times for a total of 30 rows. So I'm going to do another one with you guys. So we're going to always slip one purlwise. You're going to see it's going to be a little loose here. Don't worry about that. As you come into knit, just tug a little bit and it's all set. Whoops. Okay, now this is a great example. I just dropped a stitch. I don't freak out anymore. If ever this happens in your knitting, do not tug on anything. Try to pick it up. If you see that it lost the stitch in the back, don't worry about it. This is a quick fix. Pick up your stitch, you stretch it out. All I do is I tug on the stitch in the back and I pick it up in between of the little circle. Do you see? I picked up that back stitch with my needle. So then I can just, so I knit this one, I slip, now I go back into knit. The best tip I can give you, if ever needles, your stitches slip off, do not tug on anything, do not try to pull anything. Leave it be, take another needle if you're not used to it, and then grab that stitch. The moment you tug, that's when it's going to unravel down. So if ever that happens, you just leave it put and then go back to it with another needle. All right, so we finished the second row. We're going to turn our work to work these purl rows, or purl stitches, excuse me. Go here. That first stitch you're always going to notice is going to be a little bit loose, and you can just kind of bring it in and tug it in a little bit. needles feel a little wonky. There we go. And there we go. Those are our first 4 rows out of 30. Let's meet back here once you finish your 30 rows and we will turn the heel together. We now just finished our 30 rows of our heel flap. We are about to do our heel turn on this needle right here. You can see that your slip stitches are a little bit more lifted, and you can count these, and there should be 15 because we've slipped them 15 times. So you see right here, like this row here, this one here, you see that they are a little bit more lifted than the row. It's very visible in person. Or you can go in the back and count your purl stitches. So to do our heel turn, it is very simple. Depending on the size, you're going to be looking at your pattern and following that exact one. But this is the medium size. So we're going to be slip 1, always tug, and then we're going to knit 18 stitches. Slip our marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So now what we're going to be doing is we are going to be doing a slip, slip, and knit. So what you're going to do here is you're doing a decrease. So you're going to slip 1 purlwise, slip the 2nd purlwise on to your right hand needle. You're going to take your left needle and put them in the front of these stitches like this. You're going to take your yarn, wrap it around, and bring it through. So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stitches. So we're going to knit 1, and we're going to turn our work. So we have, if we count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 stitches on that side. So we're going to turn our work around. Kind of the same concept as we did on our heel flap. So now what you're going to be doing is you're going to slip that stitch, tug it a little bit. And what we want to do is we want to have the exact same number of 10 onto this side. So if we were to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it would bring us right here. Then this would center our heel perfectly in our sock. So what we would need to do is we need to purl 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches. We're going to purl these 2 together, purl 1, and then it will be perfectly centered. So let me show you how that works. We already slipped our first one. As always, we tug a little bit to make sure that that's perfect. And then we're going to purl 7. So 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So now what we're going to do is we're going to purl 2 together. To do that, you go into the 2 stitches at the same time and we purl them together. We purl 1, and now there should be 10 stitches. So if we count again, there'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're going to turn your work around. So So this was the setup round for your heel turn. Now you're going to see that there's two little gaps here. You're going to see these little tiny holes. This is where you turned your work. So what we're going to do is we're going to knit to one stitch before the gap. So we're going to knit across, and I'll show you what that looks like. Now, you see I'm one stitch before that gap. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to slip these two together. I'm going to knit them, knit one, and we're going to turn. We're going to do the exact same thing for the purl. So we're going to slip this stitch. We're going to purl to one stitch before that gap. So you see right here, we have a gap. We purl to one stitch right before. We're going to purl these two together, purl one, and turn our work. We're going to continue doing this until all of our stitches have been worked. So we knit to one stitch before the gap. One stitch before the gap. We're going to slip, slip, knit together, and knit one. You see your heel is starting to turn and starting to take shape. So you're going to continue doing this on each side until all the stitches have been worked. We're at the last row, and I just wanted to show you what it looks like once you're finished with the decreases. So we are at one stitch before the gap. We're going to slip, slip, knit. Then you're going to knit one. So we've worked all of the stitches on the knit side, and we are going to turn our work to finish with the purl side. Purl all the way to the end. All right, so we're purling one stitch before the gap. We're going to purl these two stitches together, purl one, and we've finished our heel turn. So you can really see that it's turned the heel completely. And now that your heel flap and your heel turn is completed, this is where we're going to be picking up the gusset stitches. And I don't want you to be scared. This is going to be very simple. We're going to go through all of the steps together. So once you're finished with your heel turn, we're going to knit across this needle to be able to pick up these side stitches. So we're going to knit all these stitches. Okay, so we are set up now to be able to pick up these stitches. Now what I want to show you is when you look at your work like this, you will see all of these stitches on the edge. There should technically be 15 of these because we've slipped these 15 times for our 30 rows. What I suggest in the pattern is that you pick up 15 stitches plus one around here to close that little gap. Sometimes you'll have a little hole around your heel flap. So this is how I do this. Now we are going to be picking up inside of these stitches. I'm going to show you how that looks. We're going to leave that needle there. I take this one out and you can see here that this is my stitch that we want to pick up in between the stitches. See that? So we're going to pick up 15. You see one right here, little fiddly right here. You can see the stitches are there. So we're just going to pick up 15 stitches plus one to close in that gap. So I put my needle in, I take my working yarn, I wrap it around, and I bring it through, and that creates a stitch. So I look for the next one, which is right here. You want to make sure that you have both strands of yarn, bring it through, you pick it up. So we look for this third, and we keep doing this all the way up until we've picked up our 15 stitches. Sorry for my, then I'll kind of tug that in there. There we go. There we go. So right now we've picked up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're going to continue. This is going to be 8. Kind of looking through the stitches. This is going to be 9. Going at 10. Oh, picked up. Sometimes it's a little hard to see. I'm at a weird little angle right now. Oh, drop that 10. No worries. I think this is 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes. Pick up this stitch here. 11. 12. 13. Oops. 14. We see here, it's a little hard to see, but 15 is right in there. So yes, what I like to do is I will pick up in here an extra stitch. So it's a little hard to see, but this sometimes it creates a gap. So what I do is I just pick up these 2 strands and I will make an extra stitch. And that really makes sure that it encloses that little gap here. So here's where I get a little fiddly. What I personally do, now I will tug on the needle right here. People may do this differently. It's just the way that I've always done it. You want to make sure that all of your stitches in the gusset are all going to be, I usually call this needle 2. So we've picked up here, you've picked up your heel turn, and then we're going to pick up these gussets here right after. So you're going to push this needle through. We're going to work back on needle 1 because we want to be able to pick up these gusset stitches. So I'm just going to work on knit across. If you have a pattern sock, this is where you would continue in the pattern for your front of your foot. But for this sample, I am just knitting. you are ready to pick up these gusset stitches right here. So what I like to do is I like to tug the needle, give myself a lot of room, and then we're going to pull this needle out to be able to pick up these gusset stitches. We're going to be doing the exact same thing we did on the other side. So we're going to pick up an extra stitch right here, and then we're going to pick up 15 stitches for our 15 rows. So you can see here that there's no real stitch right here. I like to pick this one up, and this is my extra stitch. So pick these two, and then we're going to start on the gusset stitches. So I see one right here, and we're going to pick up 15 stitches, just like we did on the other side. Making sure I pick up the two strands together. So now that we've finished, if you count, there should be 16 stitches on your needles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be joining these two needles together, because this all together is going to be a lot of stitches, but this is going to be your needle 2. And we're going to slowly decrease this to get back your 32 stitches, which is your original needle 2 size. This might be a little tight, but we just knit across. Ooh! Just lost a stitch here. That's okay. This does happen, you guys. And I don't stress about it. I just pick up the stitch again and keep working across. Now I will note that once you're knitting across these for the first time, it could be a little fiddly. It could be a little tight depending on where you picked it up. Just keep going, not making sure you're not pulling too tight on your needles. And we're just going to knit across this entire row for the first round. Okay, so now you see that all of your stitches from your gusset, your heel turn, and the gusset on the other side are on needle 2. It's very packed, but don't worry. We're going to be doing some decreases right over here and right here. We will not be doing any type of decreases on needle 1. All of the instructions for the decreases are in the pattern. So what you typically do for my patterns is you'll knit one round all around, and then you'll do a decrease round. So we'll do that, a knit and then decrease until we've come to the same amount of stitches, 32 stitches here, than your original the original stitches that you had for the leg. And that's when you're going to continue down for the foot. So let me show you what the decrease round looks like. Okay, so we're going to work across needle 1. For this one, it's all knit stitches. But like I mentioned before, if you had a pattern, this is where you would continue your pattern. All right, so we are ready to start our decreases. We're just gonna pull this through. Now what you're gonna do, like the pattern states, you're going to knit 1, you're gonna slip, slip, knit to 3 stitches before, knit 2 together and knit 1. And then you're gonna knit on the front. You're gonna knit 1, and then we're gonna do the slip, slip, knit. So you're gonna knit 1, we're gonna slip, slip, and knit together. And then we're going to knit across to the last 3 stitches. So now that we're at the last 3 stitches, you're going to knit these 2 together. So you pass them through the back, or sorry, the front, and then loop through the back. And bring them. So you're knitting these 2 together, creating that decrease. You're going to knit 1, then we're going to turn. We're going to work just knitting on your needle 1, and then we're going to continue doing this. So it's going to be 1 round full of knit on each needle, then 1 decrease round where we're going to knit on this 1 needle. We're going to do a knit 1, slip, slip, knit to the end, knit 2 together, and knit 1. What this is going to do is this is going to decrease only on this needle to get these back to 32 stitches, which was your original count. So we're going to work on this 1 needle. I'll do another round with you guys. So we're going to work this round. We're just going to knit every single stitch. I've just finished knitting all around and I'm ready to do my second decrease round. So we're going to do the exact same thing as we're going to knit 1, slip, slip, knit across, knit 2 together, and knit 1. You're going to keep doing these 2 rounds like I mentioned to get this needle original cast on. So this was 32 stitches. We're going to continue doing these 2 rounds. After you finished all of your decrease gusset rounds, have your original stitch count, you're then going to continue knitting both needles until you measure between 125 to 175 inches less than your full foot length, or to whoever you're knitting for. I have this detailed in the pattern. For the size small, I recommend 1.25. I think it's 1.5 for the medium and 1.75 inches for the large. You want to knit with negative ease because it is a sock. If you like more negative ease, then I would definitely go more for the 1.5 to 1.75. And I will meet you back here once we finish all these decrease gusset stitches as well as the full length of our foot. So it's really just doing these 2 rounds and then knitting until we are ready to start the toe. And we're going to be doing our toe in our contrast color. So I'll show you how to attach it and finish, bind off, We're almost there, you guys. We can do this. We just finished knitting the foot of the sock, and you can see here that I put this on a sock blocker to show you how to measure the length of your foot. I have all the details in the pattern on how many inches and how to calculate, as well as where to measure on your foot. For my husband's pair, I needed to knit to about 8 inches. So I just put the ruler on the back of the heel, and then you can lay this on flat. You don't need a sock blocker for this, but I wanted to put it on a sock blocker just to show you. And you can see here that we are at the 8-inch mark. So we are ready to start our toe. We just knit plain on the sock. If you had a pattern, you could knit the pattern on the top of the sock. And if so, this is where you would stop and just do your toe. We're going to be casting on our toe with our contrast color. So what you'll need for this is you'll need your contrast color as well as a tapestry needle for our Kitchener stitch. And don't worry, I will go through the Kitchener stitch with you guys. I took them off the sock blocker just to show it and to be able to continue on our toe. So what you're going to do is you are going to cut your main color to be able to attach your contrast color. I forgot to mention, I put a stitch marker. You can also put, or a progress keeper, you can also put back your stitch marker when you had finished your heel. I remember in the heel turn, it was a little fiddly and I didn't want it to fall off. All I do is I put either a stitch marker or a progress keeper on that side, so I know that that was my original row, and this is where I will always be starting, binding off, so that my sock is always even. So yes, I did forget to mention that, but I do have a little progress keeper here. Just as the same as before, we are going to take our contrast color and we are going to wrap it around our needle. So we go into knit, take the contrast color. You always want to make sure that you're leaving a little bit of a tail, and you're going to knit one. We are going to read the pattern, and it says knit 1, slip, slip, knit to 3 stitches before the end, knit 2 together, knit 1, and repeat on the second needle. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We already knit 1 to be able to attach our contrast color. We're going to drop the little tail, and we're going to slip, slip, and knit together. Now we're going to knit all the way to the last 3 stitches. Some of my stitches were twisted because I may have unraveled a little bit earlier. So if ever you see that your stitches are twisted, just knit from the back and it will automatically untwist them for you. Giving myself more yarn. Like this stitch, you see how it's twisted? All I do is I knit from the back and it untwists it automatically. Again, twist it. One more. All right, we are now at the last 3 stitches, so we're going to knit these 2 together and then knit 1. Knit the 2 together, knit 1, and we're going to turn our work. Now your pattern says to do the exact same thing, so we're going to do the knit 1, slip, slip, knit across, knit 2 together, and knit 1. So we are going to keep decreasing. We now knit to the last 3 stitches. We're going to knit these 2 together, knit 1, and turn. Now you see that here it is loose because of we cut our main color to attach our contrast color. So there is a little bit of a gap. This is the exact same thing as our cuff. When we turn our work, the first stitch that we're going to knit, the first 2 stitches I like to do, is I like to tug a little bit more. So the next round is knit all stitches. So you see how this is loose? We're going to knit the second one, a little tight. Now all I do, bring the tails in the back and I just tug them. And then I put them in the sock. I find that this helps, and don't worry if you still see a little gap, because what's going to happen is once we finish the sock, we are going to weave in the ends, and this is going to completely close that gap. That's why we leave a 4 to 5 inch tail, so that it allows us to really close in that gap well. So the next round in your pattern says that we knit all of the stitches. So you're going to knit on needle 1 and needle 2 in the back. We just finished our round 2, which was knitting all the stitches, and now we're back on needle 1, ready to do another decrease round. We are going to continue these 2 rounds until we've reached the number of stitches it says in the pattern. I'm knitting the size medium, so I need to knit to 12 stitches per needle for a total of 24 stitches left. And where you're decreasing, you'll notice you decrease these 4 corners, so it really creates a little kind of triangle coming inwards. So we are going to be continuing this with our contrast color, and I will meet you back here when we are ready to Kitchener the toe and weave in the ends. You guys, we are almost there and we can do this. I'm proud of you guys. We now finished the toe and we are ready to Kitchener these stitches together. I have 12 stitches on each side for a total of 24 stitches. I cut my contrast color and I left a longer tail, probably about, I would say, 10 to 12 inches. You want this because you are going to be using your tail to Kitchener this together to close in that hole at the at your toe. So what you're going to do is, this is where you're going to be needing your little tapestry needle. You are going to put the yarn through the tapestry needle. And for a Kitchener, what you're going to do is you are going to knit 1 off, purl a stitch on. You're going to go in the back, you're going to purl the stitch off, and then knit the stitch on. It looks something like this. Take our tapestry needle, so we're going to knit 1 stitch off, pull the yarn, purl the stitch on, purl that through. We're then going to go on our back needle, purl the stitch off, pull the yarn, always tugging to make sure you're closing in. And then we're going to knit that stitch on. So let's do this again. And you keep on going till you've worked all the stitches. Knit off, purl, on, purl in the back, purl off, knit, on, knit off, making sure your needle doesn't, or your yarn doesn't get tangled, and then you're going to purl on. Now this is a good example. Do you see how my yarn went around all of my needles? You want to make sure your needle, your yarn doesn't get tangled. Then we go in the back, purl off, whoops, see right here. So we're just going to take that yarn, and then we're going to knit on. Go back in the front, knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. See how once you break it down, it gets easier. Oops, make sure you actually go through the stitch. Not tangling any yarn. Oops. Knit off, purl on. Sometimes your yarn does get tangled, and that is okay. That happens to me too. Purl off, and then we go knit on. We're going to do this all the way to the end. Now, once you get to the last few stitches, it will be a little fiddly, so just keep a hold on to your needles. I do find that sometimes the stitches fall off just because there's just so little of them. And so we're gonna purl that one on. Seems as though it's only like, seems as though there we go. Sorry about that. The stitch was split in two, so I really wanted to make sure that I just picked it up. And then we're just going to purl that on. Take all those little strands. And now you're going to go in the back, purl it off, knit it on. Now, these are your last two stitches, so you really want to make sure, what I usually do is tug that one a little bit more because it has a tendency to fall off. So we're going to knit off and then purl off. Put down our needle. And that's it. You guys, we finished our sock. So now it's all the finishing techniques. So you see like there's a little bump here. It's not perfect. What I always do, right next to it, I poke my darning needle through. Then I take my hand inside of the sock and pull the tapestry needle to bring that yarn into the sock, because we're going to be weaving in the ends from the inside. And when you do that, it will help close that up. You can also, if you see like there's a little tiny bump, you can go back in and weave in the end and bring it more on the inside of your sock. You can do that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn our sock inside out, and I'm going to teach you how to weave in the ends. Your sock will look something like this if you did a contrast color. So what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you up here how we weave in the ends of our socks. And this, you can use this technique for any type of knitted project that you have. What I like to do, I'll usually start from the top down, weaving in my ends. So you will also need your tapestry needle for this. At the top, if you ever see that it's not like perfectly aligned, what I usually do is I will just pass it through a few times, and I find that it kind of brings the stitches together. You see how that closes it up a little bit more and looks more straight. I usually like doing that. Now what I do to bring it down is I will pass through in the back of these little tiny knit stitches. So I will bring it down that way. So you just want to pass it through, then pass your yarn, so that when you're looking at it, you can hardly see where the yarn is being weaved in. I usually do this about, I would say I weave it in 6 to 8 times, and that usually will help secure the sock. Now here where we have all purl stitches, all I do is pass it behind the purl bump. You don't want to pass it completely through your sock. What you want to do is lift up these little tiny purl stitches and just pass it in the back. My tapestry needle's a little big for this, but you see here, I just pass it through the back and bring it down. Now, once you're done, you just cut off. I'll usually leave like a little tiny tail because you don't want to cut too close to your knitting. All right. Now here is where we had attached our main color. All I like to do once we have 2 different ones, you kind of still see the little tiny hole here. Now, to help with that, crisscross your yarns like this. And you're going to weave them in different directions. And what that does is it tugs the yarn together and closes in that gap even more. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass our strand on all the little tiny purl bumps in the back. So I usually put my hand in the sock, I push it up, I look for these little tiny purl bumps right here, and I just pass them through. You could do every stitch, every 2 stitches. It really doesn't matter. I just wouldn't do more than like 2-3 stitches. What I mean by that is every stitch would be like this. Every 2 to 3. You don't want to do big long floats. You want it to be secure. So, oh, my strand of yarn. Let go from the needle. There we go. And now we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So we're going to take the main color. And this is why you want to leave yourself a long tails, because you want to weave in those ends so that your sock stays secure and doesn't unravel. So again, the same technique. It doesn't matter which ones. It doesn't matter what color. If you're passing it through the back, you should never see it in the front. I just decided to choose a bigger tapestry needle to be able to show you guys better. But I don't think it was the smartest idea because I'm having trouble putting it through the little tiny purl bumps. But I wanted you guys to be able to see all of the little tiny details. We can make it work. There we go. These are a little bit more lifted. Up here. Again, about 5, 6 to 8 stitches, anywhere in there, just to make sure that, oh, see, I was passing it in the front. You just want to pull that back, a little back. There we go. So now that those have been pulled on each side, you can turn in your work and really see that that gap is completely gone. You really closed it in because you twisted the stitches and wove them in on the opposite directions. So all we do now, we cut the yarn, and that's it, you guys. Continue weaving in your ends for the rest of the sock, so it'll be around the toe. You'll weave in all of those ends, and you are done your sock. That is it. I hope that you found this very interesting and love the video. If you have any questions, send me an email or list them down below. I would absolutely love to be able to help you finish your first sock. So I appreciate all of you watching through this entire video and for your suggestions for this. I will be having more of these tutorials, and I think the next one, if you watch to the end, is going to be color work socks. So that is really exciting. Thank you so much, everyone, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Happy knitting!